So one of the unique things that the Corvil solution allows you to do is it can actually, we can actually add threat intelligence feeds on top of the packet data. And what that means is that we ship with emerging threats. We also can include ISI partners. We can also include any STIX or taxi compliant feed out there. What this does is it turns that packet analytic data into indicators. I can actually begin to understand those patterns in my data center, the threats of those patterns, and then what we do is we put a score on those indicators, and I get this view, which gives me the highest risk user authentication that's happening inside of my data center. I also get the highest risk host in the data center itself. So I can see infected servers, infected entities within that data center. Here is a list of all the different indicators that we kind of see there, and I can drill down into any one of these, or I can myself sort of bring to the top or ignore indicators that I care about. But let me show you what happens if we drill down into this. So I'm saying to the tool set, listen, I see this high risk user. Where was this user, and what types of communication was happening because of this user login? So what this view is right here, if we can scroll down a little bit, is I get a list of all the different conversations that I can see for this particular user. And so there's several things that I can kind of figure out from this, right? So I can see them going to mail right here. I can see them coming out to getting some HTTP data right here. There's some SMB data in here as well that I can kind of see. This is a complete accounting of what that user did. And one of the things that we can begin to do, because I have the packet data underneath this, there are some interesting things that I can get. One of them is to basically download the file. So artifact extraction, I can actually download the file that person was downloading. And then I can send that up to Wildfire and say, hey, what do you know about this file? Or I can send this to my sandbox in there, or maybe I just want to see what the heck they were doing. I can begin to grab that file and manipulate that file. There's also several things that I can do. I do have some integration with other sort of security vendors that are out there. So for Carbon Black, for endpoint monitoring, I can start an investigation. So again, the idea there is that from the data center perspective, I can kind of grab some data off of an agent, if you will, and see what's happening from the process level on the OS. And then, of course, we're here to talk about our integration with LiveNX, and so we certainly can do that as well. So one of the things that I really can't see very well with the Corvil solution is what's happening in the branch on that person's PC. So if, for example, malware was infected on somebody's laptop in a branch location, for example, and that malware was connecting through the internet out to China or Russia or some other sort of known threat, I don't necessarily see that. So I need to rely on LiveNX to sort of complete the picture, if you will, and tell me what's happening in those views. So again, as we drill down into LiveNX, and we'll go ahead and we'll paint this again just so you guys can see what happens here. I get a topology view, right, of the connected flows and things that person is talking out into. Now, I might want to do a couple of different things here instead of just sort of looking at the traffic itself. So I might want to actually begin to sort of walk, if you will, this tree and be able to see exactly who's connected to what. So for example, if I'm looking at this and I'm looking at, for example, this Outlook web service, maybe the malware did come from an email, an email that came down to their desktop, or maybe there is an SSH session in here that I see connecting out to a server that really shouldn't have in there. I can actually begin to sort of filter this for that. So if I look at, for example, let's say this Outlook web service is the application that is sort of the transport, if you will, of that malware. I can then begin to sort of repaint this view, and I can say, hey, just show me from this infected PC all of the other machines that are communicating using that same protocol that I've deemed as being a suspect here. And then we can begin to sort of see those views on there. I can also, if I want to, although it won't be interesting if I click on this guy, but I can actually recenter, if you will, the IP address. So for example, if I wanted to recenter this IP address and say, okay, what's coming from this IP address, I can do that. I think this one doesn't have anything basically out there. Let me go ahead and pull this out. So I actually don't see anything downstream from that particular IP address, but we can sort of get those type of views. So if I see something interesting in here, I think, again, one of the nice things that I would probably do is I would say, hey, John, how can you characterize for me in the LiveNX product, that client PC in the branch? What types of reports can you do that shows me exactly what that thing has been up to over the last several hours or last several weeks?
So from the LiveNX perspective, we can provide you situational awareness from a cyber perspective, what's happening. So this is all the traffic. And I'm going to enter one of the IP addresses. But before I do that, we do have a big data backend to be able to absorb millions of flows, billions per day. And this is all the different traffic within a certain period of time. But we have 4 patents in this area of how do you analyze and visualize, and including a machine learning backend to be able to show you the pertinent information. Now I'm going to enter this specific IP address, and since we have a big data backend, we can store all the raw flow information so we don't lose any granularity, and we do it in a very compact and efficient format. So you can save this for months, years if you wanted to. So this is that particular IP address that Scott was looking at, and we could look at it from the data center side coming back in through the MPLS cloud into the Austin site, and we can actually see the PC generating that traffic as well. And you can right off the bat, do some reports off of this. So I could look at the address pairs, and then I can see, what countries it's going to and where it's sourced from, what are the different parameters it's using. But I can pivot this to look at it from an application perspective if I wanted to. And you can see all the different dimensions that we provide. And you can drill down into any of these, and we can give you all the raw granular information that you want. But one of the interesting things we can do is we can look at this in a real-time view, what's happening within this device. So this is all the different applications and traffic flow going through the device. It updates every 10 seconds. But I'm going to look at only that particular IP address, for example. So this is that IP address in question. We're looking at it from an application perspective, looking at it from the IP address perspective. And for forensic analysis, we could go to the playback view, and we could go back to any point in time, and then we can play this to see what the actual behavior of this is. So I have this IP address entered, and I'm going to play this. So we could look at it from an IP address perspective and let it play. So it's talking to different IP addresses over time, and we're doing it in 30-second frames, but we could do this in a 1-hour frame. So you can imagine in in a 1-minute period, you can see the whole entire day and see exactly who did it talk to, and it could drill down into more specific information as well. And then if you, for incident response perspective, if there is nefarious traffic and you needed to do some type of action, we provide the capability to create ACLs right off of the device as well. So if you wanted to block this on the firewall rules or ACL rules at the edge device, we can insert that in. We can also create an ACL and using policy-based route, which we have an editor for, to actually reroute that traffic to a better sensor that you can analyze that nefarious traffic in more detail. You can also put it into the quality of service so that you can actually shape and delay that traffic. So you don't want to let the attacker know that you're onto them, but at least delay it so it gives you more time to understand the behavior and what they're really after. So it gives you a good perspective from the overall network view, what's happening, and you can do exploratory analysis at scale over your entire network.